Welcome to the Breakout from Burnout podcast. This is episode 4 of season 1, and I have another bold and courageous mum here with me today. Let me just introduce myself. My name is Aisha Mohammed, and I am your host. I am also a burnout recovery life coach, and I help mums recover from burnout for them to be able to live life on their own terms, to find their purpose and align themselves with that through activities that they love and enjoy. And it's really quite amazing that I'm coming across these beautiful women who are sharing their burnout recovery with us so that we can see what burnout really is and how it shows up in your life, and therefore understand why there must be some kind of urgency to do something about it. And to give hope in the fact that you can actually recover if you find yourself in a state of burnout, because these women have. So it's possible. And what is really beautiful is the fact that the burnout journey that these women have weathered has, in many cases, led them to find their purpose and to align their lifestyle with it and to serve others. And I think that that is really beautiful. And that kind of gives some context as to why we actually go through hard times, challenges, and trials in our life, is because it's to teach us something and to help us help others. So I'd like to now introduce our guest. Her name is Melissa Miller. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the Breakout from Burnout podcast, the Triumph Over Burnout Mum series. Thank you for being here today. Introduce yourself.
My name's Melissa Miller. I have a 15-year background as a certified nursing assistant. Almost 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years ago, I turned stay-at-home mom, full-time spousal caregiver for my family following my husband's diagnosis of epilepsy.
Wow, that is some life altering circumstances in becoming a stay-home mom. I myself have been a stay-home mom, so I know all about that life. But when it just comes about suddenly, that is a heck of an adjustment to have to make. So, in that being said, tell us about how burnout showed up in your life.
Well, what I will say is that people think like like you notice something like right away, right? It didn't for me. It came about, I'd say, slowly, and partly because I was neglecting myself. I didn't really start to see my burnout symptoms really start to come to the surface, I would say, until January of 2021. My husband started getting sick in December of 2019, and then throughout the year of 2020, I was just in mom mode, trying to figure out how to navigate my stay-at-home mom journey, how to navigate my caregiving journey. But by January of 2021, I started experiencing was I was just having a lot more gut trouble than normal. Was the big flag for me. I have hypothyroidism, and I get a lot of gut problems related to that, but they were worse than normal. I was tired, I was snappy, um, emotional, fatigued. So it was more, I'd say, physical symptoms more than anything for me. Everyone's different, but for me, it presented itself more in a physical manner. And I was just feeling really, really sick. I was just not feeling, and I didn't really start getting answers until about April or May of 2021. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was just feeling so sick. I was like, okay, I've put this on long enough, probably too long. And then all of 2021 was just a year of doctor's appointments, testing, adjusting my diet, trying to just figure out why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And it was horrible. It was
I can
absolutely
imagine.
horrible.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Wow. So most of your symptoms were physical, and you mentioned that you had gut issues, and this is something that a lot of women or people in general that suffer with burnout can have to deal with. And obviously that affects your nutrition because, you know, you have to be careful of what it is that you can eat. You have to cut certain things out of your diet and adjust to a different kind of lifestyle. How did you balance doing that alongside the caregiving activities that, you know, were required of you? Because you also have a child as well. So how did you manage all of that?
It got crazy. One of the things that really helped in the beginning was because there's just so I really didn't know what my trigger was, or multiple triggers, I will say. When it comes to food and gut issues, and you have things that set you off, I like to use triggers. And so one of the things I did was an elimination diet. I would take notes in a notebook about how I was feeling when I'd eat a certain food. And just that way I'd remember, for one, and have that to reference when I would see my doctors and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is how I'm feeling when I eat these foods. And it's happening multiple times. I would do it sometimes multiple times to be sure that it wasn't just because it was spoiled or, something like that, just to be sure. But it was challenging because I was still needing, because my family does not eat plant-based or grain-free or gluten-free like I have to now. So I'm having to cook 2 meals. So it was getting really crazy with making food for them and then just being with, okay, I eat. Because my diet got really, really limited. I figured out that I needed to go grain-free and gluten-free to help manage my issues. I was down to potatoes and vegetables. That was about all I could eat. It was just horrible. And I'm still pretty limited too, because obviously soy, dairy, grain, it's in everything. And so to find products that are within that spectrum is really challenging. So it was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming to deal with that. And on top of that, I'm tired, overwhelmed, scared, with dealing with my husband's illness, because epilepsy is not curable. It has hit and miss days. Even if you're on medication, you can have attacks unexpectedly. And it was just really overwhelming just learning about this illness, even with my background, like I said, having 15 years experience as a certified nursing assistant. It was like a crash course the first 6 months because I had never had I had never had an epileptic patient in my career. And
Mhm.
so it was just a crash course of really trying to educate myself as best as I could about this illness and how it was impacting my husband, because it's also a very individualistic illness, and so that was stressful, and feeding it the burnout, because it's so different for everybody. For those who aren't familiar with epilepsy, it's very unique. Like you could have 50 people on the same meds or using a similar treatment method, and I guarantee you they would all have different reactions because you're dealing with the brain, which is individualistic itself, right? And so it's everyone's got a different reaction, and not everyone's going to have the same positive response to treatment. And so so that's stressful. It's like you try something and you don't know if it's going to work. So that's just a daily stressor.
Wow. And your parenting, how are you able to manage with being burnt out, caring for your husband and caring for your child?
And my little girl, yeah. Yeah. Well, my little girl, she was so in December of 2019, our daughter was just about to turn 1 in January of 2020. And so it was stressful. Because even though she was only around 1, when my husband started getting sick, she would cry. She would get scared when we'd have EMTs in the house, trying to take care of my husband and help take care of him when he had a seizure. Even when I did give him medication, she was scared because she didn't understand why her dad wouldn't wake up. So it was very traumatizing. And even today, when she sees him pass out, she's very sweet. She'll go and stroke his head, and obviously she knows she can't do a ton of things to help, and neither can I. All I could do is just observe, watch for new symptoms, make sure he gets his rescue medication, and just monitor his progress with coming out of the seizure to make sure he does come out. And I don't need to send him to the hospital, like if he quits breathing or like if he's hit his head because he might have a concussion or something like that. But it's still tough on her, because she also knows too from the standpoint that I can't ever leave her alone with her dad anymore, just for that safety piece of we never know when it's going to happen. And she can't call 911. She can't give him medication. She can't write detailed notes so our medical team knows what's going on. So it's tough. It's affected. This thing has definitely impacted her in a certain way as well. Dramatically, I would say, for one, but then two, just day-to-day life. She knows it's different now. She knows that we don't parent the same way that we used to.
I get that. I get that. What support did you have in dealing with
I didn't
all of
have
that? Did you have
anything,
any support?
family and my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had my, excuse me, let me take a drink of my coffee here. Morning frogs. I had my family and friends, which I'm thankful for, and there were people in my church who were praying for us and knew it was on, but I didn't really, in terms of actual support, like say from a coach or a mentor or a support group. So I was blessed in the sense that once I decided to start my business and start sharing my story, there were people in the business supporting group that had been touched by similar situations like this and were supportive, and they still are. But still, it's not the same thing as when you have somebody that actually has gone through what you're going through, of quitting your job, of dealing with your own health, of having small children at home when you're has become life changing, has had a life altering illness happen. So it was tough. I was really doing a lot of this on my own, and that was really scary, and that was very overwhelming.
Mm. So when did things start to change? Was there incident that happened, or what kind of spun you into motion to say, look, I need to get a handle on this somehow. I need to turn this around. I can't continue like this. How did you find yourself at that point?
Well, I'd say 2021 was of healing physically in terms of seeing the doctors, getting on medications. I did finally get a diagnosis for my IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, in December of 2021 after I had a procedure done and got on and I've been on medication since about January, so that's helped. I mean, I still have symptoms, and it's an illness. It's another chronic illness, just like hypothyroidism. You never get rid of. So physically, I'm doing better. I'm obviously just trying to take care of myself with avoiding my food triggers, taking my medication,
Mm.
getting outside to exercise, even if it's just a walk, just to get some fresh air and try to move. So physically, so internally, I'd say 2021, I really, because of everything I dealt with, one thing I really noticed too was I had a lot of internal trauma that came to light when I started journaling. I hadn't journaled for years
Mhm.
when my husband got sick, but I did that last year. And one thing that I will say, the one thing that's interesting about writing is that there's something that happens more so than when you just are having a conversation like we are. More things
Mhm.
come to light when you actually write things down and you get it out of your brain and onto paper. And one of the things that I really just noticed was just how angry I was. I was angry that my husband got sick, not at him, it's not his fault, but just angry that this happened, because with him
Mhm.
and his illness, it's an illness that could happen to anybody, but more often than not, it's usually diagnosed as a child, or if you have prior history in your family. And my husband falls actually in that 20% of the population that, for no apparent reason, you will develop some sort of seizure disorder within your lifetime. And he falls in that 20%. So,
Mhm.
shit, I mean, it still is. So I'd say and last year I definitely realized I need to deal with this because I need to be able to show up strong physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually for not just myself and my work, but more importantly, as a mother, as a wife, as a caregiver. So just getting back into things that help me cope with that has been a process, and figuring out what makes me tick. Reconnecting myself and getting back into my passions has been huge. My work really helps because it is healing. I know I'm helping women avoid this making the same mistakes I did when they're starting their caregiving journey and their journey as a stay-at-home mom, so caregiver. So that's
Mhm.
amazing. But getting back into journaling every day, um, just physically taking care of myself, not missing wellness appointments anymore, putting that off, listening to my body, if that makes sense. Um, and even just like doing things that nurture the soul. So like making sure we're getting back into going to church regularly. One of the journaling things I do now, I love, it has a weekly verse that you think about every time you journal on that. So that's been helpful for my spiritual development to get back closer to the Lord. And then
Mhm.
I'd say the last thing has just been um, doing things that light me up, feeding my passion for what lights me up. And my work right now has really become that outlet of serving others. And when I work early in the morning, like I am now, what I found too is I started listening to. I do better if I have like a little bit of noise, like some inspirational music or something, and also to block out noise when it does get crazy around here. But I love listening to worship music, and so just having that blaring in the background to not only feed my soul spiritually, but also just for inspiration. That what God has given me this crazy journey for one reason or another. He didn't plan for my husband sick, but He has turned something amazingly beautiful out of our hard situation. And I think He has given this outlet to me for a reason, to help me heal, to help me recover from my burnout, and also just to give my family some hope and inspiration as we're still navigating this journey for the rest of our lives. This will be ongoing. This will never stop. I will be a stay-at-home mom for the rest of my life. Um, I'll be a for the rest of my husband's life.
Oh, something has gone a little askew with the connection. Hold on, let's see if we can get Melissa back. You broke up for a minute there. I think
I'm
it's maybe the
sorry.
connection.
You were fine. I could
I
hear
think it's
you
maybe the
just fine.
connection.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. So you were saying that, the reason why you felt that the burnout had happened and these life changes that came in quick succession, were happening. You was explaining that to us, why, you think that you're going to be a stay-home mom for the foreseeable future and just the lifestyle that you're now living out. That's the point that you were at. Really cut out.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's lifelong. It's a shift that's going to be permanent, and I think
Hmm.
I've accepted. Well, I know no, I know that I've accepted that now, and
Hmm.
I definitely am thankful that even though the shift was done because of a really hard situation, something good is still coming out of it. I'm serving others through my work to give them hope so they don't have to go through the situation by themselves.
Yeah, that's excellent. So finding purpose through your adversity. Um, And whenever we have these life challenges, it's always about the attitude that you actually have when going through it that will help to take you through in a way that's a lot easier than, I guess, if you're kicking and screaming, as you're encountering the difficulty. And
Right.
I think that's the thing that allows us to find some semblance of peace whilst going through the upheaval is the fact that the attitude is one whereby you're grateful for what it is that you have and that you're looking for opportunity whilst all of this is going on, the opportunities of how you can mine out something that's going to be of benefit to yourself and your others. And that brings us to more focus in on the work that you are doing with caregivers. Just tell us a little bit more about that.
So, oh, excuse me. One of the reasons I'm here doing this work today is because out of my own journey of lack of support, lack of resources. When I started my journey in the spring of 2020, that's when I went on my medical leave initially and left my job. I did start looking for resources. And the thing that I quickly found was I could find stuff for stay-at-home moms more from the standpoint that they chose to be a stay-at-home mom, not because of any life-altering decision, just in their family, they decided with their partner that it was most beneficial for them to stay at home to nurture the kids. And that's fine. And I'm glad there's those resources. I could find stuff for like epilepsy, like specific illnesses like that. That's good. But it wasn't really curtailed to somebody who's a younger spousal care with smaller kids at home still and with the in which the situation that I was experiencing was in. So when I started deciding what I really wanted to do with my business, I decided, you know what? I never had a coach or a mentor or support or a mom mentor to tell me how to navigate all these new experiences when I'm having to make some really hard decisions really quickly. Like, do I quit my job or do I try to outsource help to keep working 40 plus hours outside the week and hire somebody to take care of my husband 40 hours a week? And that can be expensive. Or do I transition home? But then what am I going to do when I lose half my income? Or what other resources on the state and federal level do I tap into? How do I navigate this? There's all these other moving pieces that, making the choice to become a stay-at-home mom and a spousal caregiver was actually the easiest part of this whole journey because it was a no-brainer for me. There was a pandemic going on. I didn't want strangers in our house. I know my husband better than anybody, and I know my little girl better than anybody. So it was a no-brainer for me. Work
Mm-hmm.
came afterwards, and that initial shock came afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So now being a mom mentor and caregiver support coach, my job is to help women avoid burnout for one, and also more importantly, get structure. And so that's what I do with my prompt and my STEM method is I teach women how to get organized home while prioritizing their self-care so they don't burn out, while
Mm-hmm.
getting a system and a routine in place for those unexpected flare-ups or emergencies with their spouse's illness, and just have structure amid the chaos and flexible stretch structure, excuse me. It's open and unexpected happens. They're not freaking out, they're not panicking, they have a system that they can fall back on, but at the same time, it's realistic and individualistic to them because I'm sorry, there's so much prescripted crap out there right now. I don't want to just be another
Mm-hmm.
prescriptive method. I want to help these women really tap into what makes them tick and what the situation is with their spouse's illness. Because I know for me, I'm lucky. My husband's pretty high functioning. When he has a seizure, then he's out, and he needs to sleep for probably the rest of the day. And he's just not able to physically take care of our daughter. So I go into mom mode for the rest of the day when he has attacks. But on a day-to-day level, even though we have to be safe, he can still work a few hour shifts a week. He can still dress, feed, and bathe himself. But
Mm-hmm.
what about the mom who has who's a spousal caregiver for somebody that is bedridden and needs more help with their activities of daily living or ADLs for the medical world? So those are other basics like eating, dressing, bathing, can't do that stuff. They're physically doing. So a system that works for that situation, right? Because I don't, I really am empowering, I really want to empower women to tap into what makes them work and what actually is realistic for their situation. Because what works for me 100% may not work for them. So I want to help them tap into what makes actually realistically works for them. So they can be successful as moms and spousal caregivers and spouses and not tap out and burn out and not be able to handle this journey on a day-to-day.
Excellent. That's excellent work. So if our audience wants to contact you, to take up your services, to be able to take in your content, where can they find you?
You can find me in a couple different places. My website is melissamiller2011.podia.com. That is where you can get everything. Everything's over there. My coaching packages, my course. I have other ebooks and organizers that can help you as well. So everything's over there. If you don't want to just try to dive into my
Excellent.
website, because that's too overwhelming, definitely shoot me. Yeah. Definitely
Well, those
shoot me a
details you'll be able to
DM
find
over on
in the...
Instagram at melissamiller11.
Okay, excellent. You'll be able to find those details in the caption of this video so that you will be able to easily navigate to where you need to go. You can also work with myself as a life coach who helps moms who are experiencing burnout. So I'm the burnout coach for moms, and you'll find my details also in the caption. I would love to speak with you on a discovery call so that we can plan together how we are going to go forward in helping you beat burnout. And I also have a Facebook community that you can join also. So the links are in the caption. So I just want to thank you so much, Melissa, for coming onto the podcast and sharing your story. And it takes courage to share your story, but I know that it will help so many moms who find themselves in a situation of having to become a caregiver whilst either trying to establish their own business, hold down a job, as well as parent a child or children. So you are proof that you can get through it. Even if you find yourself burnt out, you can get to the other side. And hey, you might even be able to help other women as well. And I think what's really commendable is that when you couldn't find the support, you actually became the support for others. And I think that just says so much about your character and your capacity, to love in order to do that. You were in a situation and you didn't want others to have to go through the same thing without support. So you stepped up and became that support. So well done to you. So I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And I look forward to introducing you to another bold and courageous woman next Tuesday at 1 p.m. GMT, which is UK time. So until then, make sure that you take good care of yourself. Bye.